This is our new home, Mommy and me." I was speechless at my granddaughter's words. After all, it was clearly just a shabby tent on the riverbank. However, my 5-year-old granddaughter seemed unaware of the gravity of the situation, perhaps finding the outdoor living novel. What on earth was going on? As I stood there confused, even more shocking facts came to light. This was absolutely unacceptable. Filled with anger, I vowed to seek revenge for my daughter and granddaughter. "Congratulations on your marriage." I hugged my daughter Maggie. She looked so happy in her wedding dress. "Thank you," she replied. Maggie's husband was the second-generation president of a company. Ben, her partner, seemed well off, taking Maggie to fancy restaurants and giving her expensive gifts. Initially, I was overjoyed about my daughter's good match, raising both hands in celebration. All I wanted was for my daughter to be happy. "I'm glad you're happy for me," Maggie smiled gently, always thoughtful of her mother. Their wedding went smoothly, and all I could do was pray for their harmonious life together. Little did I know then what trials awaited my daughter. While I had hoped for Maggie's happiness, I discovered something terrible after she married Ben. He held outdated values, what you might call male chauvinism. After they got married and my granddaughter Charlotte was born, I went to visit Maggie in Ben's house. "Maggie, coffee." Ben not only ordered Maggie around while she was holding and soothing Charlotte, but he also tried to chat with me while leaving Maggie standing. "Ben, do you always treat Maggie like this?" I couldn't help but frown. Isn't a wife supposed to devote herself to her husband? "Is there a problem?" he replied, sipping the coffee Maggie had made, seemingly unconcerned. "I want you to treat my daughter with more care," I protested, but Ben wouldn't listen. Our thought processes were completely different. As I was leaving, I whispered to Maggie, "If anything happens, don't hesitate to talk to me." She nodded silently. Walking home, I squinted at the sunset. Come to think of it, my husband was kind of like that too. My late husband also had old-fashioned values and always spoke to me in a commanding tone. I sighed, wondering if husbands have always been like this. After that, I couldn't see my daughter or granddaughter for a while. When I tried to contact Maggie, she wouldn't answer the phone, and there were no return calls. I thought maybe Maggie was busy with childcare. As I continued to worry, one day I finally received a phone call. "Hello, Maggie. Have you been well? Is everything okay over there?" However, it wasn't my daughter on the other end of the line. "It's been a while, mother-in-law." "Ben, why are you calling from Maggie's phone?" "So it was you who's been persistently calling her phone." Ben threw sharp words at me with a sigh, not answering my question. "It's pointless to try contacting Maggie. She's mine now. Don't treat my daughter like an object. Put her on the phone. Shut up. Don't contact us again." He spat out these words and hung up. As I listened to the dial tone, I was dumbfounded. At the same time, I couldn't stop worrying about Maggie. So, I went to see my daughter when I knew Ben would be at work. However, Maggie came to the door with a gloomy face. What are you doing here? Ben hates you and told me not to see you anymore. I'm sorry, but I was worried about you. Are you really okay living with Ben? My daughter lowered her eyes sadly, and I felt helpless. Hey, why don't you come back home with Charlotte? However, she strongly pushed away my outstretched hand and glared at me. Don't be ridiculous. Do you want to make Charlotte a fatherless child? I was left speechless by Maggie's vehemence. When you butt in, it causes trouble between Ben and me. Please, just leave us alone. But I'm just worried about you. Mind your own business. I'm happy with my rich husband and cute daughter. I have nothing more to say to you, so go home. With that, Maggie slammed the door shut. I was so shocked that I couldn't move from in front of their house for a while. Maybe it's better if I don't interfere with them anymore for Maggie's happiness. After being so strongly rejected by my daughter, I felt helpless. I wiped away the tears that had unknowingly started flowing down my cheeks and trudged away. 5 years passed without me seeing my daughter. Although there wasn't a single day when I didn't think about Maggie and Charlotte, there was nothing I could do. I lived my life praying for their happiness from afar and taking care of my own health so as not to cause trouble for my daughter in the future. Then one morning, during my daily walk, I decided, today, I'll take the riverside route for a change. As I walked near the cool riverbank, watching the morning sun, I encountered an unexpected sight. What's that? I noticed an unfamiliar tent pitched on the riverbank. Moreover, it was a shabby tent, dirty in places. When the entrance opened and a child about 5 years old poked her head out, I felt my heart almost stop. As the girl started washing her face in the river, I recognized her. As I cautiously approached, the girl noticed me and smiled brightly. Hello. Hello. Are you Charlotte? Yes, I am. How do you know my name? I thought so. I'm your grandmother. The last time I saw Charlotte was right after she was born when I visited Maggie's house. The girl in front of me was the spitting image of Maggie when she was little. However, Charlotte's body was painfully thin and emaciated. What are you doing in a place like this? This is our new home, Mommy and me. Charlotte seemed surprisingly cheerful. Maybe she thought this unusual camping was exciting. Charlotte, is someone there? As she said this and opened the tent flap, it was Maggie who poked her head out. She froze when she saw my face. Mom. She whispered in a trembling voice, then hurriedly grabbed Charlotte's arm and ducked back into the tent. Maggie, so this is where you've been. What happened? It's none of your business, so go away. My daughter kept rejecting me with a strong tone. I didn't understand what was going on, but I knew this wasn't a normal situation. Don't worry. I'll help you. Everything will be all right, I promise. As I continued to speak gently, eventually I heard sobbing from inside the tent. Mom, help me. And so, I took my daughter and granddaughter into my protection and brought them back to my house. I prepared a bath and meals for them, and after they had calmed down, I listened to the full story. What I heard shocked me. Ben had enforced male chauvinism at home, treating Maggie almost like a servant. Furthermore, Ben only saw Maggie as a tool for bearing children, and right after Maggie gave birth to Michael, who was to be the heir to his company, he kicked Maggie and Charlotte out of the house. I was speechless, not even knowing about the existence of my grandson Michael. When Charlotte was born, he kept berating me for not being able to have a boy. But then when Michael was born, he said I was no longer needed. Maggie was stroking Charlotte's head as she tearfully recounted. And when they were kicked out of the house, they were threatened, "If you tell your family or ask anyone for help, I'll hurt Michael." That's why they couldn't turn to me for help and had no choice but to start living in a tent. Maggie had told me to go away to protect me. I absolutely cannot forgive this. After learning everything, I couldn't stop crying at the terribly cruel treatment my daughter had endured. It's okay now. I'll take care of everything. As I embraced Maggie and Charlotte, I vowed revenge against Ben. First, we thought about collecting evidence of Ben's wrongdoings. However, Maggie had almost nothing with her when she was kicked out of the house. She had left with just the clothes on her back, almost no money, and had been eating grass growing on the riverbank for meals. "How did you get that tent?" "Actually, I secretly took it from the storage shed at Ben's house." Maggie looked apologetic, but it was understandable given the emergency situation. They had been camping out on the riverbank in that tent for about half a month. According to Maggie, her smartphone had been taken away and was probably still at Ben's house. I had recorded how I was usually treated on my smartphone, but now there's no way to access that evidence. He probably took it away anticipating that. I felt like grinding my teeth at Ben's cunning. The next thing I considered was whether we could take legal action. However, I realized it would be difficult to afford a lawyer. Besides, Ben was a company president with income. It was clear he would use his money to hire a top-notch lawyer. We wondered if there was any other way. After discussing, we decided on a certain method to corner Ben. Not even 3 days had passed when Ben came barging into our house in a rage. From early morning, there was a violent banging on the front door. "Open up. This is your doing, isn't it?" Thinking he might break down the door if this continued, I quietly let Ben into the entryway. However, inside, I was doing a victory pose. Because this was the beginning of our counterattack. "How may I help you?" I acted submissively, pretending to be frightened. "There's no use trying to play dumb. Maggie's here too, isn't she? You broke your promise to me." "What are you talking about? Could you please explain in more detail?" Ben seemed irritated by my act of trembling in fear. "You took pictures of me splurging at a strip club and spread them on social media, didn't you? I don't know how you did it, but the company's account is in flames, and it's become a huge mess." That's terrible. But isn't that what they call reaping what you sow? While pretending to cower before the enraged Ben, I inwardly smirked as I said this. As Ben had said, it was indeed us who had orchestrated this. Ben's company was known for its low employee wages, yet he was out partying at strip clubs almost every night. Knowing this, I paid one of the women at the club he frequented to take photos of him there. Then, I created an account and posted those photos, spreading them across social media. As a result, angry messages flooded Ben's company account. It seems that this caught the attention of people related to his workplace, causing problems for the company. Then the employees started complaining about my behavior on social media. Thanks to that, even our business partners have run away, and it's been terrible. It seems he had lost credibility, lost clients, and the company was on the verge of collapse. Maggie, you're here, aren't you? Come out. I warned you, but you went crying to this old hag. Ah, you mean how you threatened that if she told her family or asked anyone for help, you'd hurt Michael? I stopped my act, straightened my back, and confronted Ben. He seemed to sense something was different about me. That's not a warning, it's a threat, isn't it? Shut up. You stay out of this. Ben yelled and kicked a potted plant. However, the pot, full of heavy soil, didn't fall over, and instead, he hurt his foot, grimacing in pain. Perhaps angered by this, he even tried to kick the shoe cabinet. You'd better not throw a tantrum. I'm warning you, for your own good. Mind your own business. Just bring Maggie out. This time I'll lock her up so she can never leave the house again. I silently handed him a piece of paper. What's this? When Ben looked at the paper, he saw restraining order written in large red letters. Stay away from my daughter. This is a warning. What? Don't mess with me. His anger further inflamed, he tore the paper to shreds and trampled on the pieces that fell to the floor. Watching this, I reached behind the clock placed in the entryway. What's that? Can't you see? It's a camera. No way. Ben turned pale and stumbled backward. I had set up video cameras in the entryway, anticipating that he might come barging in angrily. In fact, I had installed 3 cameras at different angles. Well, since you threatened that unfortunate things might happen around us, it was necessary for security and vigilance, right? When I checked the footage from one of the cameras, it had perfectly captured all of Ben's behavior. I'm sure the other cameras recorded similar footage as well. We intend to submit this to the police as evidence. And we've hired a lawyer to get Michael back, whom you took from my daughter. What are you talking about? Poor people like you can't afford a lawyer. We found a kind lawyer. When I posted about Ben's misdeeds on social media, I also wrote about my daughter's terrible situation. A lawyer contacted us, saying, I want to help you, out of goodwill. The things Ben cherished most were his male heir, his job, and his social status. Realizing he would lose all of these, he was left in a daze for a while. Then Ben crouched down in the entryway and began to kowtow. Please forgive me. I was wrong. We've known that for a long time, haven't we? I'm sure my eyes were cold as I looked down at Ben. He started trembling and whimpering as if he had seen something terrifying. Let me tell you, I have no intention of ever forgiving you for what you did to Maggie and Charlotte. Even if Maggie forgives you, I will never forgive you. Then, I called out to Maggie, who was in the back room. I called the police. They should be arriving soon. Actually, the moment Ben arrived, I had instructed my daughter to hide in the back room and contact the police. Ben's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he desperately clung to my feet. Please wait. Please help me. If I'm arrested by the police, I'm finished. Isn't this the comeuppance for looking down on women all this time? Anyway, could you please not touch me? When I shook off his hands, Ben turned his back to flee from the house, flinging open the front door. However, police officers were already waiting there. I handed over the camera footage to the police as evidence. Then, I glared at Ben with stern eyes. All your actions have been recorded as evidence. From now on, you'll face the judgment of the law. And so, Ben was stuffed into a police car, crying, and my daughter and I watched until the car was out of sight. After that, Maggie and Ben's divorce was finalized. Maggie not only got Michael back but also claimed $20,000 in damages and $800 per month in child support. And so, Maggie, Charlotte, and Michael began their new life in my house. I believe we'll surely be able to live a happy life together from now on, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that happens. Surrounded by my daughter and grandchildren, I'm filled with anticipation for our new life ahead.